Go ahead and start this recording. Thanks for making it on this random Monday at 3 for a Tuesday at 2 class. I appreciate your flexibility. And, for everybody else, we are recording this. So it seems like we have kind of a big week, so I'm glad at least we're getting this recording in. We've got the last 3 sections of Unit 1 that we're handling today. We have 2 Excel assignments, and I do have kind of help videos for each of these. So when I post this in the announcement, the recording of this live session, I will also share the videos for those two. So as you're working on, hi Christian, so as you're working on those Excel assignments, feel free to check out those help videos as you go. We've got the normal quiz this week, the discussion board this week. Project 1 will be introduced today as well. That is due on the 18th. It's, a little over 2 weeks. If we need more time, please communicate with me how we're doing with this. I also have a video that goes with Project 1 that I will be posting, so lots of videos I'm posting. But if we need more time, I can back up that due date. I just don't want to give you too much time because we are going to have Project 2 that's going to roll around in about 2 weeks, and I don't want you to feel like you have too many things going on at once. So communication is vital. So if you need an extension, we need to talk about that sooner rather than later. Remember that next week is exam week. So if you haven't already scheduled your exam, you need to do that. So last week's live session, we went through how to schedule your exam. So feel free to check that out if you need help. Discussion board 4 is due next week on the 12th, which is kind of a weird off-brand thing, but it's about prepping for the exam, and that's why it's due next week. So next week's session on Tuesday, I will be here for that Tuesday session, and because it's exam week, that will be a question-answer session. So any questions that you might have for the exam, you have I'll show you in the module where you will find I'm losing my words, the practice test. And if you can do the practice test, you'll do pretty well in the main test. So we'll make sure you know where that is, and then next week we'll take questions over that, and we'll go from there. So that was kind of a quick overview of everything that you need to do this week, and it seems like there's a lot. So do any of you 3 that are here, thanks for all coming, do any of you 3 have any questions before we get this party started? 3 sections today. Going once. Kara says she's good. Okay, well, if you have any questions, good. Okay, if you have any questions, of course, as we go, feel free to break in and we'll go from there. So we're going to start here in section 7, which is working with percentages. And of course, remember, we're doing all Becky specials. Nothing here comes directly from the packet so that you can watch those videos and get help later. So there are 2 ways of working with percentages, and I'm going to show you both ways. We're going to do some of each. I'd like you to practice both ways while we do this here. After we do a couple using both methods, then you can choose whatever you want. If you prefer one method over the other, then I would recommend you just go with what you like. Everybody's a little bit different, so I don't like to say this is how we're going to do it. I'll share what my favorite method is, but that doesn't mean you have to do it, right? Okay, so just kind of a quick breakdown. I like proportions better, my personal preference, because I think I can think less. So all of these are percents, and look how straight that line is. And as we know, percent means out of 100. So if I'm setting up a proportion, whatever the percent is in the problem, the percent is always going to go over 100, always. So half of my proportion is going to be written before I even do anything or do any thinking. So I have percent over 100 equals, and on this side I have is over of. And you're like, what does that mean? Well, it depends on the problem, but basically the numerator deals with the part and the denominator deals with the whole. So we're thinking part over whole. And that should make sense in terms of percentages, right? 100% means all. The is and the of come from whatever follows the word is represents the part of the numbers, I guess, where of represents the whole thing. So kind of keep that in mind as we work through these. When it comes to equations, the word is, well, that means it's an equal sign. The word of, well, that's times. And when you deal with a percent, you have to change that to a decimal. So those are kind of the three things that you have to really remember when you're dealing with equations. The nice thing about proportions is that we never have to worry about a percent decimal conversion. We play with this little, the proportion, and that's it. It is what it is. So it really depends on how you see things. I think the application problems are a lot easier with proportions, but the rest of it really depends on what we're doing. So we're going to do some problems, and we're going to do them both ways so that you can see what they look like in terms of proportions and equations. And then you can make a decision on what works best for you. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and move on. So we're going to do this problem two different ways. 16% of what number is 40? Okay, so I'm going to start first with the proportion. All right, so we're going to do the proportion over here in green. Well, when I read this problem, 16%, I always start with the percent. Always, no matter what it is. So 16%. I know that the 16% means 16 over 100. Now on this side, remember we're thinking is over of, and you're like, how am I going to remember that? Alphabetical order. I comes before O, so the I goes on top, right? Is. So of what number is 40? So is 40, that means 40 goes on top. Of what number? We don't know, so X goes on the bottom. Hopefully you remember how to solve proportions. It wasn't that long ago that we started doing those. So 16x, right, we're cross multiplying, equals 4,000. We're going to divide both sides by 16. And what do we get for an answer? Is anybody playing along? 250. Thank you for that quick response. So X is 250. All right, not too bad. Green to red to yellow. Again, stop me if you have any questions. So that's kind of the thought process as we work through the proportion. Now, when we go to the equation, we kind of think left to right. So we still start with the 16%, but now I'm going to change that percent to a decimal. So 16% is 0.16 as a decimal. Of means to multiply. Ooh, I didn't want to do that. I can't undo it. That's okay. We're going to multiply by what number? Well, I'm just going to call that n for what number. Is means equals, and now I have 40. So if I just write that, I have a number times an unknown value equals 40. I just got rid of that using an x for a times. That was really bad on my part. I apologize. But now we want to get n by itself, so we divide by 0.16, and we end up with 250. So mathematically, you get the same answer. And if you notice, my red line and my blue line look really similar. They're off by a couple decimal points because we have out of 100, and here on the other side we change it to a percent or a decimal. So that's kind of the basis of how each look. Do you have any questions on either of those? We'll call this version A and version B. Same problem, two versions. No? Okay. Let's see if you guys can do one. Okay? And you can do it either way. When we talk about it in a few minutes, we're going to talk about it both ways. So try this one, whichever way you want. When you're done, just type yes in the chat box, and we'll talk about it then. And if you're stuck, you can type no in the chat box if you'd like. Okay, we got a little feedback coming in. Christian, your answer is almost correct. It's just a technicality of why it's not. So let's go ahead and start talking about this. And you can see where your technicality comes in. First, let's talk proportion. What percent? Well, that gives me x over 100 because I don't know the percent, and that's why we have that over 100. Is 240. Oh, good. Hey, if you can get one part, that's really all that matters. But good, good. Okay, so I feel like we're close here. Is goes on top, so 240 of 600, so 600 goes on the bottom. So there's the setup for our proportion. Let's cross multiply. 600x equals 24,000. Divide both sides by 600. And as Christian said, x is 40. Now I said incorrect. We're missing a technicality. What are we missing in our answer? Go back and look at what is the question asking for. There we go. They're asking for what percent. So all we need to do is on our answer, shove that percent sign at the end, and poof, we're done. All right? So there's the proportion. You're good. If that's the worst mistake you make today, you're living great. All right, so now we're writing our proportion or our equation. We get what percent? Well, I don't know, so there's x. Of means multiply, so I'll just use the multiplication dot this time. 600 is a number. Is means equals, and then we have 240. So to solve this equation, I would divide both sides by 600, just like we did in the last problem. And now I get x equals 0.4. But the problem is, with the equation, that's a number. We don't want a number. We want a percent. So I've got to change that decimal to a percent, meaning you multiply by 100. And we end up with 40%. There you go. There you go. Perfect. Yeah. And with these, it truly is, the more you do, the easier they get. All of a sudden, they just become almost like, clockwork, right? Trent, everything making sense? Kara and Christian both responding there. Good. Okay. I want us to try one more of these. Well, when I say we, I mean you. So again, you don't have to do it both ways. You can just, you can. You totally can try it both ways. But if you choose, you can choose to just do it the one way that you like best. Up to you entirely. So let's try number 6. Feel free to do it either way. And yeah, okay. Try this one. Again, yes when you get it in the chat box, or no if you get stuck. All right, we got a couple yeses there in the chat box. What'd you get for an answer here? 24 is correct. So as a proportion, we have 30%, so that goes over 100, is what number of 80? As an equation, we've got 30%, which is 0.3, multiplied times 80 is what number? Either way, mathematically, take off that percent, Christian. Look at what they're asking. The question says, is what number? So if they're just asking for a number, your answer should just be a number. If they're asking what percent, then you need a percent sign. So it's very, very crucial that you pay attention to what exactly are they asking for, a percent or a number, because it does matter, right? There is a difference between a number and a percent. All right, questions about number 6 in this case. Guys, I'll do okay on that one? All right, I want to go to story problems because that's really where the fun stuff happens. All right, stop me if you need more discussion. But here we go. Sarah's paycheck was $1,750 and she pays $800 in rent. What percent of her paycheck goes to rent? So this is kind of where, this is personally where I think proportions are easier. As I mentioned earlier, I always start with the percent, and in this case they say what percent? Well, if I don't know the percent, that's just x over 100. Now on the right hand side, I'm thinking part to whole. So when I have these two numbers, 1750 and 800, which one of those would be considered the whole thing? Which one would I use for the bottom where it says whole? Okay, well, we're talking about paying rent, right? So if you think about the 800 and we're comparing that kind of to the paycheck, is the $800 the whole paycheck? No, the $800 is part of the paycheck. So the part is what she's paying in rent. The whole thing is her total paycheck, right? So if you think about 100% is all the money she has. That's why we have the 100 here and the 1750 here. Those are the wholes. 800 is what she's paying in rent, so the X represents the percentage, right? The part of the whole that she pays in rent. So think part to whole. Which one represents all? Again, we cross multiply. I'm going to let you guys do that math. And let's round to 2 decimal places if we could. Good. X is 45.71 with that extra percent. Excellent. So, and you can kind of see what percent of her paycheck goes to rent. Well, 800 is not quite half of 1750. So 45% is not quite 50%. A little less than half. Okay. Does that make sense? Hopefully. All right. Let's have you guys try one. 36% of students think math is the best subject. It's probably higher than that, actually. If 48 students think math is the best, how many total students are there? Okay. And if you want to see what this would look like with an equation, let me know. But otherwise, I just always usually do proportions. Go with a yes or a no in the chat box when you either got it or you're stuck. All right. What'd you get for an answer? I did not get 75. 133 is the correct answer. Christian, did you use a proportion or an equation to do this problem? A proportion. Okay, so let's look at it. We can see why where yours differs from mine. So if we start with the percent always goes over 100. Now, remember the part, and this part represents those that like math, right? That's what the 36% of students think math is the best. So the top is people who like math. The bottom is the whole, also known as the total. So when you're looking at 48 students think math is the best, well, 48 means that's the part. How many total students are there? You're trying to find the total, so X goes on the bottom. So when we cross multiply, we get 4,800 equals 36x. Divide by 36, and you should get X is 133 students. Okay, you found your, okay. Sometimes, you simply write down the wrong number and it just screws everything up. But as long as you see where you made your mistake, that's good. All right, so there's section 7 in a nutshell, right? 23 minutes. Any questions about proportions, equations? You can do them either way. Obviously, I prefer proportions. That's the way I set all of mine up. Do any of you have any questions regarding section 7? We got a nope. Okay. All right, so we're going to get into section 8, which is descriptive statistics. And we're going to work through this, I'm not going to say quickly, but if it takes us 25 minutes, we're going to be in trouble because we're going to run out of time. So some of this should all be reviewed from some aspect of your past mathematical life. So if we're going to find the mean of some data, we're going to take the sum, which means we add them all together, and we're going to divide by the total. All right, so we add them all up, divide by the number that there are. This assumes that all of the numbers are created equally, meaning they're all weighted the same. The median, in case you have forgotten, is the middle number, and that's if they are in order least to greatest. So you've got to put them in order first if they're not already there. So least to greatest. Then we get to the mode, which simply means most often. So the most has an O in it, mode has an O in it, median has a D, middle has a D. The range is the largest number minus the smallest number. So it's the difference between the biggest and the smallest. Percentiles we'll spend more time on, but basically you're thinking out of 100. Right? Because percent means out of 100. So we'll be able to figure out, and we'll talk about how you do percentiles by hand. We can do a few of them by hand, but mostly we're going to do percentiles using Excel. And we'll show how that looks here in just a bit. Okay, so any questions before we jump in? You guys remember doing these in your past? Maybe, maybe not. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll jump into this. Let me erase drawings. Okay, so we have ourselves a data set. We're going to deal with small data sets for the most part. I would like you guys to find the mean. You start with the mean. The rest of them we're going to kind of do together. But the first one, find the mean. So sum them all up. Divide by how many there are. 23.43 is correct. Great. Now, I do want to talk about the median just slightly because the median, depending on the problem, can go either way. So what I do is I kind of mark them off, and I'm going to mark them off with X's underneath because I need to be able to see these numbers. But when you're working your way to the middle, right, they're already in order of least to greatest. We want to just work right to the middle. And in this case, 24 is exactly in the middle. So my median is 24, and it cuts through. I always think of like it's chopping a tree. We just chop that 24 tree down. Now the mode, which number appears most often? (32). You can have two modes. You can't have more than two. But in this case, 32 appears twice. Everything else is just there once, so we're good. And the range, well, our biggest number is 32. Our smallest number is 12, and therefore my range is 20. So that's all pretty straightforward. I feel like you've done that in the past. It's a refresher. If you haven't done it in a while, you are going to need a refresher, but that's about it. Now, the percentiles, okay? If you go from here to here, this whole thing is percents, right? Here's 0, here's 100. Well, the median cuts it directly in half, which means the median is also known as the 50th percentile. So in this case, our 50th percentile is 24. Well, also, from here to here, right, this is 0 to 50. If I think about cutting that in half, that's my 25th percentile. So if I think about everything in front of the median, so in front of the vertical line for the median, if I find the median of my lower half, that's my 25th percentile. Well, I only have three numbers, 12, 16, and 18. So if I say, okay, cut that one low, high, I only have one number here in the middle. And therefore, my 25th percentile is 16. Cuts directly through it. When I go to my upper half, choose a new color, right, from 50 to 100, well, halfway between 50 and 100 is 75. So if I take the median of the upper half, which is everything to the right of the median, so cross out low, cross out high, 32 is my 75th percentile. Now, how I make sure that this is always right is that look in front of this first vertical line, I have one number. In between my next two vertical lines, I have one number. My next two vertical lines, one number, and after my last vertical line, one number. So you can see that in each position, there's just one number. The 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile break data up into 4 equal parts. And that should kind of make sense. 25, 50, 75. We're talking about quarters here. So these are quartiles. Break them up into 4 equal pieces. Okay. Does that concept make sense? We're going to talk about that again. Oops, I forgot to erase. All right, in this second one, we're not going to find the mean, the mode, or the range. I feel like you guys can do that. But we're going to talk about the median, the 25th, and the 75th percentile, because that's generally what causes people problems. So I want you to start first, just find the median. (59), excellent. If you cut through, 59 is between these two. So the median is 59, right? You might have to actually, the mathematical definition, right? You add them together, the 58 and 60, these two, and you divide by 2. So our median cuts between them. Now, because we didn't actually chop down a tree, right? We kind of fell between two trees. When we go to find our 25th percentiles, it's all the numbers in front of the median. Well, 58 is in front of 59. So I'm going to take all 3 of these numbers into consideration. Therefore, what is my 25th percentile? (50), correct. You're just finding the median of those 3 yellow circled numbers. The median is the one in the middle. So the 25th percentile is 50. Then when we go to the upper half, we're looking for the median of the numbers above the median. So what is the 75th percentile? What's the median of the three orange circled numbers? 60, exactly. The one in the middle, 60. So then if you go to double check the three positions, well, in front of the first one, there's one number. Between the next two vertical lines, there's one number. Between the next two vertical lines, there's one number. And then at the end, one number. So you can see that they are nice quartiles because they are split evenly. Okay. Questions about percentiles. The Excel assignment for descriptive statistics is basically this, finding the mean, median, mode, range, 25th, well, different percentiles, but using Excel, using formulas in Excel. So I created the video to kind of show you where to find the formulas, how to use the formulas, how to make that all work in Excel. But one thing that I want to tell you, just in case you already feel comfortable with Excel, make sure when you go to the formulas to use the percentile function, we want to use percentile.inc. The INC means inclusive. We're going to include 0 and 100 as part of our percentile, which makes sense, right? 0% means I don't have anything. 100% means I have everything. And so we need to include those when we think about things. It'll slightly change your answer if you use the EXC, so we don't want to do that. Okay, any questions on this stuff so far? Okay. The last piece of Section 8 deals with symmetrical versus skewed data. Now, there's a video that goes along with this that's actually pretty good, and I don't say that because I made it. I say it's because I give some decent detail. If you have symmetrical data, that means when you graph it, if you would draw a line down the middle, the left and the right are identical, right? Well, this doesn't generally happen with us, but we may have approximately symmetrical data. And most of the time, if you have symmetrical data, that means your mean and your median are the same. So if you look at some data and you find that the mean and the median are the same, then you probably have symmetrical data. Skewed right. When you think about skewness, you've got to think about tails. So if I'm drawing this, skewed right means my high point's on the left and it tails to the right. So you've got to look at which way does the tail go. That's the way that it's skewed. So this is skewed right. We would often think that the mean is greater than the median when we are skewed right. And notice the way your inequality symbol goes is the same way that the tail points. That's kind of how I remember it. Your tail will point the same way the inequality symbol. Of course, this is always if the mean is first. That is something to remember. Okay, now skewed left means our high point is on the right and the tail goes to the left. So again, the mean will be less than the median. Again, the inequality symbol will point in the direction of the tail. Now, these pieces over here, these are generalizations. There are exceptions to these rules, but generally, this will hold true with your data. It will all depend on the data set, but generally, these pieces do hold true about most of our data. All right, so let's, any more questions? That's Section 8 in a nutshell. Does anybody have any other questions on Section 8? If this symmetrical versus skewness, if you felt like I went kind of fast, you want to make sure you hit that video, because you should be watching the videos that you need. Some of you may need all of them, some may need none of them, but this is maybe something that you didn't go over in your elementary or high school days, that you're going to maybe need to have a little refresher over. So, okay. Let's go to section 9, last section of the day. So there are 2 different ways to do weighted averages. One of them is with percentages, one of them is with counts. And it's pretty easy to tell which one you use when. I mean, if you read a problem and they give you a bunch of percentages, well, then I'm going to use percentages. So don't overthink it. Just use what they give you. Both of these processes start with multiplication and then divide. Okay, so they have the same basic idea. It's just a matter of looking at what you have. So if you have percentages, for example, your course grade, this class is weighted 15% for that, 20% for this, whatever. We use percentages. Anything with numbers like your GPA. GPA doesn't have any percentages, but it's still weighted based off of what I call quality points. So, okay, so let's kind of get into these examples here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a percentage problem. And I know it's a percent because look, I have percents. When you have a percentage problem, the weights should always add up to 100. In this case, they do. And I'm a very big fan of organization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, well, I've got to have categories. So we're going to start with my categories. I've got homework, I have quizzes, I have projects, and I have exams. Then I need my weights. So homework is 10%. Your weights are going to keep the percents with them. Projects are 25 and exams are 45. And now if you look over here on the right, over here, you will see that for homework we have 4 scores, quizzes have 3, and then projects and exams each have 2. Well, we're not going to keep all of these individual, so we're going to take the average. So we're going to find the category average. And this is exactly how your math grade is figured in this course. So if you think about for homework, we need to find the average of these 4 scores. How do we find the average of those 4 scores? Or I should say, what is the average of those 4 scores? Right, that comes from section 8, what we just did. Do you remember how to find that average? We're going to add these 4 numbers up, divide by 4. Good, Kara. And we get 95.5. So add these 4 together and then divide by 4. That's what we did in section 8. So the category average for homework is 95.5. Just 1 score comes over for homework. Then we go to quizzes. We say, okay, now I have 3 quiz scores. So I'm going to add those 3 together and divide by 3. Let's just round to 2 decimal places. What is my average quiz score? $78.3. Okay, I'll take that. Projects, I only have 2 of those. So I'm going to add these 2 together, divide by 2. What's my average project score? 94. Excellent. Same thing for exams. There's 2 of them. So I'm going to add these together, divide by 2. and I get 90. Where'd you get 4,000? Trent, how did you get 4,000 for? Oh, what did I do? What did I do? Oh, crapper dapper. What happened? There we go. How did you get 4? Trent cheated. Well, maybe, but it wasn't the good kind of cheating. Remember, when you add them together, you get 180, and then we're dividing by 2. I feel like you multiplied by something. Oh, hey, you're keeping me on my toes, which I do appreciate. And it's making everybody else who's watching this, interested. Okay, so now we have our category averages. That's kind of your first step. Sometimes you're going to be given those. Sometimes you're going to have to come up with them. So at this point, when you think about the weights and what the weights mean, homework is 10%. So 10% of your overall grade is from the homework. Well, your category average for the homework is 95.5. 10% of that goes towards your final score. So I call this last column quality points, and that's a Beckyism. You're not going to find that in your packet anywhere. That's what I call it. So when you think about quality points are found by multiplying always. 10% of your category average for homework is your homework points. So 10% times 95.5 gives me what? So remember, change your 10% to 0.1, multiply by 95.5. And how many points do you get for homework? 9.55. Great. It's your quality points. For quizzes, 20% of 78.3. So we're going to multiply. So right, I talked about that first page. Your first step is to multiply. And you might say, we did a whole lot before that. Well, that's true. But weights times category average gives you quality points. So as I work my way down, 20% times 78.3, I rounded a little bit differently on my page. We end up with 15.66. 25% times 94 is 23.5. And 45% times 90 is 40.5. So your quality points are going to kind of lead you to your final grade. Okay? So in essence, you're trying to take all the points you earned, so your total quality points divided by your total of the weights. This is the percentage problem, right? Because weights are percents. So for us, how many quality points did this person earn? Total quality points. Can you add up that purplish, pinkish column? $89.21. All right, so our total quality points is 89.21. If you add up the percents, what do you get? The total weights. I've already mentioned this once, but just to refresh, total weights is what? Well, if they're percents, they must add up to how much? 100, exactly. So these all together are 100%. Well, to play with percents, we have to change them to a decimal. 100% as a decimal is just 1. So I mentioned you have to multiply then divide, but the nice thing about percent problems is you're dividing by 1. So in this case, your final grade is an 89.21, which is a B. And that, my friends, is a weighted average problem with percents. And as good or bad as it is, this is what your first project is about. You're going to be given some scores, you're going to be given some weights, and you're going to figure out their overall score, but you're going to do it in Excel, not by hand. But if you understand how to do it by hand, it makes the Excel portion a whole lot easier. So we will be talking about that here in a moment as well, hopefully. Okay, and weighted average, the math is not difficult. I mean, we multiplied and we divided. I mean, that's essentially, we found some averages, but we multiplied and divided. It's the knowing what to do next that's the hard part. And that comes with repetition. You really need to practice these problems for them to really make some sense. Okay, I think we have time for one more. We're going to do a counts problem with GPA, and then we're going to talk about the project and kind of move on from here. So, okay, so let's find a GPA. Oh, okay, so this did not come over very nicely. You can see that the grades are C, A, B, D, B. These numbers should, oh gosh darn it. I need to back up. Hold on a second. Okay. So these credits should be over here. 3, 3, 3, 4, 3. Get those out of there. All right, so here's the deal with GPA, and it's written on most of your homework, but an A is worth 4 points, a B is worth 3 points, a C is worth 2, a D is worth 1, and an F is worth 0, which makes sense. If you fail a class, you don't deserve any points. You failed it, right? But every other grade means you mastered something, which means you get some points. Okay, so when we're creating this thing, we have our credits, but we need to have what I'm going to call scores. Maybe values. Scores or values, either one. And that's based off of the grade. So when we're talking about biology, in biology, this person earned a C. How many points, or what's the value for a C? Just making sure everybody's awake. A C is worth 2 points. Okay, so biology gets a 2. Math, you got an A, naturally. So an A is worth 4. English is a B. That's 3. A D is worth 1. And sociology, a B is worth 3. So basically, the grade leads to a column about the scores or the values of that. And that will allow us then to move forward. Okay? So, let me get myself a new... Because remember, just like with percentages, we have to multiply. We need what we like to call quality points. And in this particular case, quality points are found by multiplying the credit times the value. Because for a grade, if you get a C, you get 2 points per credit hour. So if you have a 3 credit hour class, you get 2 points for each of those credits. Well, what's 3 times 2? That might be the easiest question I've asked you all day. Three times 2 is 6. So you get 6 quality points for biology. For math, 3 times 4 is 12. So you get 12 points for math. English is 3 times 3, which is 9. 4 times 1 is 4. And then for sociology, 3 times 3 is 9. You've got to figure out the total quality points, and that takes into account, right, for each credit hour. To find the GPA, we're always taking the total quality points. It doesn't matter if it's percentages or counts. That's why I kind of use this terminology. Total quality points over total credits. For this case, it's total credits because that's what we're talking about. But think about it. Anybody can earn, 40 quality points, but how many credit hours did it take them to get there? Did it take you 60 credit hours to earn 40 points? If so, your GPA is going to be really bad. Or did you get 40 points in 10 credit hours, right? Totally different. Okay, so how many total quality points did this person earn? Quality points is our green column. We found quality points by taking credits times the value. And they earned a total of 40 quality points, right? We added those 5 numbers together. So doing our math over here, we've got 40 over, all right, well, total credits. So we go to our credit column. How many credits did this person take? 16. So 40 credits in 40 quality points and 16 credits. When we divide, we get our GPA. What is our GPA? 2.5. Exactly. right? And your GPA should be somewhere between 0 and 4. If you got all A's, you have a 4. If you got all F's, you get a 0. If you had a mixture of things in between, then your number should be somewhere in between. And that is the basis of weighted averages, right? So we did a percentage and we did accounts. I highly recommend watching the videos for that section, or the videos from the back of the book in that section, because the more you do, the easier they get. Okay. All right. I want to, where's my button here? I need to find what I'm looking for, which is always crapshoot. What class is this? Are we 41? Yes, we're 41. I can never remember what we're talking about. Okay, your project. So, project 1, let me show you where that's at. We are we module 4? Okay, so these are not quite in the right spot. Okay, so project 1 weighted average. You see it's under module 4. This is where the button is for that. And you can also see Excel, descriptive statistics, that kind of thing. All right, so this is the document that you're going to want to look at. And you're probably going to want to start this after you do your Section 9 homework. You want to make sure you feel comfortable with the material before you jump into the project. Again, I will be posting a video here shortly. I'm actually late for a meeting right now, so I'm going to jump straight to my meeting after we're done here. So it'll probably be later today, tonight, before I get everything posted, but it'll be done before I go to bed, don't worry. Okay, so the thing I want to really talk about this project is just, come on, buddy. There we go. You have 2 things that you have to turn in. You need to turn in an Excel assignment and a reflection paper. So this first part here identifies the Excel spreadsheet, right? Your name, your course name, the scores on the next page, the category averages, the weights, blah, 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 blah. The video that I post will basically walk you through this first piece. Okay, and I will check your Excel before you need to turn it in. So if you do it and email it to me and ask me to check it, I will get that checked and get it back to you in a fairly quick manner, because I know what the answers are. So it's pretty easy for me to look at it, make sure your formulas are all good, and give you some good feedback. This is 40% of your project grade. So basically, you can get 40% of it perfect before you turn it in, because I'll check it for you before the actual due date. You just have to send it to me if you want me to check it. But these little white boxes in front of the pieces, those are the checklist. That's what I go through and I check off when I'm grading your project. So you want to make sure you have all of those pieces. This second part is your reflection paper. You're going to write in a Word document. You're going to answer these questions. Now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes. Yep, these 6 boxes. So I recommend having 6 paragraphs. They don't need to be large and in charge. They just need to answer the questions, okay? So good detail. Pretend like the person reading this is not your instructor. You want them to understand what's going on. So use 6 mini paragraphs to answer these questions. I will not pre-read your paper, but I will give you feedback on questions. So if you I really don't understand what they're asking in the second bullet, just shoot me an email and tell me, I don't understand bullet number 2 in the reflection paper. I will give you some feedback. Try to help you understand. This second page, these boxes, this is just making sure you have everything you need, kind of some basic parameters. And then at the very bottom of the back page, this is your information, right? Here are your scores. You're finding a weighted average. Here are the weights. Here's the grading scale. This is all the information. So this is what you're going to be using to do your project in Excel. Okay, so read over that. I do not recommend waiting to the last minute to start it, because you might do it really quickly, but it may take you might have some questions. And I can tell you right now, the 18th is a travel day for me, so I will not be on email much on the 18th. So you're definitely not going to want to start at the day that it's due, or you'll be on your own. So check that out. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll go from there. But I think that's it, right? So hopefully you got everything kind of taken care of. Did I miss anything? Do you have any questions? Nope. Kara says nope. Okay, so make sure you do have some stuff due tonight. So if you haven't finished those things from last week, ooh, a little German there, I like that. If you have anything due from last week yet, make sure you get onto that. I will be posting in the announcements. So again, if you haven't been looking at the announcements, this is where all the important information goes. So the announcement will say 10-2 live session recording and other videos, just like this one does, right? And other videos. And I'll be posting all kinds of stuff in there. So the Excel videos, this live session video, the Project One preview video, those will all be in there. If you need anything, of course, get me an email. I will be checking email the next 2 evenings. Thursday is kind of crazy. I might check email in airports in between flights, but that's about it. So let me know how I can help you. Thanks for showing up today. I appreciate it. That's all I have. So I'll see you guys next week, regular time on Tuesday. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. If you haven't scheduled your exam yet, get to that this week. So thank you for coming. Let me know how I can help you. Thanks, guys.